Hello and welcome to Senior Solutions, where we bring you topics affecting seniors and their loved ones. I'm your host, Mindy Felinton. I know that I have some confusion about what the differences are between dementia and Alzheimer's and what we need to look at, the diagnosis, etc. Well, my guests today, Dr. Xi Besha and Dr. Xi Besha, are here today to help to clarify the differences as well as talk to us about neuropsychology. They are both neuropsychologists, and we're so delighted that you're here today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So the first question I have is, what is the difference between traditional psychology as we know it and neuropsychology?
So basically, a neuropsychologist is actually a clinical psychologist with specialized training in neuropsychology, meaning that we have extensive training involved in cognitive testing. Okay, and what that means is that we administer basically mostly paper and pencil tests to assess our thinking skills. So things like our attention, learning and memory, how we process information, how we work with information, language skills, visual spatial skills. So our mental functions, that's related to how our brain works. And
so I guess what I hear you saying is that the neuropsychology aspect is distinguished from a clinical psychologist doing other types of work because you're doing testing that's more objective as it relates to issues of memory, etc.
Exactly. So our focus is really on that brain and behavior relationship, whereas other psychologists, they may be more involved in like treatment of psychological disorders such as depression or anxiety. Okay, so we do, we assess for these mental health disorders as well, but our main focus is on brain functioning.
Okay, wonderful. So that being said, and thanks for clarifying that in my mind, no pun intended, can you tell me the differences between dementia and Alzheimer's, because there's so much interplay between those two terms, and clarify that for us.
Right, there is a lot of interplay, and that's a question we get all the time, as you can imagine. So dementia is sort of an umbrella term. It's defined as a decline in cognitive functioning, the same types of skills that Dr. Besha was just mentioning, that affects daily functioning. So it affects the sort of easy things that people do, like every day, like bill payment, driving, medication management, that sort of thing. So that's what a dementia is. And there are lots of different things that cause dementia. Alzheimer's disease being one of them. And Alzheimer's is the most common cause of dementia. It accounts for about 70% or so of all dementias. So Alzheimer's disease is an actual disease process that's associated with the development of abnormalities in the brain. You may have heard of plaques and tangles and that sort of thing.
Speaking of which,
Sure.
And I know more recently there have been some findings relative to the plaque. Can you tell me about that?
Well, the plaque is basically made of amyloid. That's just abnormal in the brain. We have it in our brains usually, but it's abnormal. It develops abnormally in Alzheimer's, and it causes, along with the tangles, it causes cell death and the death of brain cells, and causes atrophy.
But is there? I thought there was something more recently. With regard to the fact that there wasn't a correlation relative to the amyloids. Am
I don't know if Dr. Besha knows about that new research. There's new research coming out all the time.
Yeah, like every day.
Yeah, we're discovering new things about amyloid and the tangles and what's really causing the Alzheimer's. Maybe it's some third variable that we're not sure of, that are causing both the Alzheimer's, the atrophy, and the amyloid and plaques and tangles and everything. And maybe the amyloid plaques are really just another sign of Alzheimer's, not really causing the disease process. So we're still figuring out all those things. But so the Alzheimer's, to answer your question, is really a cause of dementia, and there are lots of other causes of dementia as well.
Such as?
Yeah, so there's vascular dementia, which is caused by vascular disease or stroke. We call that vascular dementia. There's a dementia due to a different sort of abnormality in the brain called Lewy bodies. We call that Lewy body dementia. There's dementia due to Parkinson's disease that not all Parkinson's patients get, but happens for some. And so there's lots of different causes of dementia, Alzheimer's being the main one.
Yeah.
So dementia's here,
Yeah.
up at the top, and then there's various different legs within the dementia that causes that ultimately, and Alzheimer's one of those legs.
And the most common, which is why they're so inextricably linked in people's minds, really.
So the ultimate diagnosis, I guess, is then dementia.
It is.
Alzheimer's is the cause of it.
Alzheimer's is the cause. You can think of dementia as sort of a symptom of Alzheimer's in a way. But if you have dementia, it doesn't mean you have Alzheimer's. If you have Alzheimer's, it means you'll have a dementia as well. So that's the way those are related.
And tell me about the diagnosis process.
Basically, we'll get reports from friends and family, anybody that's been close to the patient of memory decline. That's usually the first sign because Alzheimer's, the brain abnormalities start in the memory centers, which is why you see memory decline first. But the diagnosis is based on a lot of different factors. Family history of Alzheimer's disease, of course, is a sign.
So there's a proven correlation?
Yes, there is. There is a correlation. And other things, changes in language. Of course, the functional impairments I was talking about, the daily activities like bill payment and medication management, things like that. So just all these symptoms combined tell us, or warning signs of Alzheimer's. And of course, age is an important factor as well. If you're in your 70s, that's another sign, maybe 60 up, 65 up. That's going to hint at Alzheimer's as well. So there's lots of signs, and then somebody will come into their primary care or physician or neurologist, and we'll do the tests that we do and start to look at the possible diagnosis.
And do you know why it is that there's a greater likelihood that someone who's 65 plus will start developing this disease?
I think, so my understanding is that the research has shown, so a part of it is related to these accumulations of these plaques and tangles in the brain, and as we age, it seems like, chemically we're not as, our brains is not as efficient as in, clearing up away these plaques and tangles, and therefore that may puts age, that would make age as a risk factor for, developing dementia, particularly Alzheimer's disease. Yeah.
So that being said, what are things that people can do, if there are things that are proven to be helpful, to prevent that from happening?
Right. Well, so
is that a $4 million question?
Yes, it is. I mean, that's
probably a $10 million question.
I think that's the question that everyone's trying to answer right now. What are some protective factors? So keep in mind that the research is still out, okay? But scientists have identified several things that one can do. So such as having a very healthy, active lifestyle. Having a healthy diet,
which is described as. Healthy diet
yeah.
is. What is that? Is that the pyramid? Is that fish every day? In that research, what do they define a healthy diet? Because it's all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly. You're right. The research what they've looked at is all over the place. I mean, there's studies that looked at, eating more fish, maybe, having higher, because the omega-3 levels in the fish, that may be a protective factor.
Unless the mercury kills you.
Right.
Right, exactly. So
Oops.
you got to weigh the risk and benefits, right? And then, but just having a healthy lifestyle, exercising, and engaging in mentally stimulating activities. Even if you're just socializing, talking, being socially active, reading, and attending lectures. So anything that keeps your mind active, but also your body active. So those are things that, there's not one way to, that's going to guarantee you, hey,
Right.
if you do this, then you're not going to get dementia. But there are just certain things that you can do to improve your overall health and your brain functioning.
Seems like there's no magic bullet.
Right, there's no
Right,
magic bullet.
yeah,
But also
for
for
now.
your younger viewers, a lot of the things that a good way to prevent Alzheimer's, the development of the actual symptoms of Alzheimer's, is just having an enriched experience throughout your life, what we call building cognitive reserve. And what you're doing in that way through education and just experience, reading and things like that, keeping your mind active, you're building up brain tissue even that can prevent or actually slow the onset of Alzheimer's. So people who have had those things can show Alzheimer's pathology sort of on an autopsy, but never really have had the symptoms at all. So that's sort of a retrospective prevention tool in a way.
It's interesting. I don't even remember who I was talking with before coming here today about that situation. Doing all those things, keeping your mind active, but yet you know of so many people who are brilliant, who are so accomplished, who are literary, and
Right.
but they, in spite of those things,
Yeah.
it still happens.
Yeah,
So
and that's true too. Again, it's not a magic bullet, but there are studies on cognitive reserve that do show that those kinds of things, education and experience, are associated with better functioning later.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and additionally, there are medical conditions that can interfere with your cognitive functioning. So, such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, having sleep apnea. So there are a lot of medical conditions that can affect the way you think. So it's important that if you or your loved one has any of these medical conditions, it's important that they are optimally managed, so we can so that can help to improve their thinking skills. So,
Okay. Well, that was really helpful, and we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, I'd like to delve more into the pathology and recommendations, medications, et cetera, that are out there now, et cetera. So we're going to take a short break, and we will be right back.
Hey, Hard, what's this?
That's my resignation letter.
You're resigning.
Why? Because you're constantly ignoring me. You're half as active as you used to be, and you eat stuff like this. You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit.
I forgot. I'll do better. Please, don't quit on me.
Okay, but remember, it's not what you say. It's what you do.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you.
Let's go for a walk.
Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
Welcome back to Senior Solutions, where we bring you topics affecting seniors and their loved ones. And I'm your host, Mindy Felinton, and I'm joined today by Dr. Jesse Brand and Dr. Xi Besha. I'll get it right. And we were talking about some of the differences between dementia and Alzheimer's, and I know I have a much better understanding of that, so thank you for that. And now I'd like to talk more about what are normal forgetting signs versus maybe we need to look at this a little bit further?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, we all have these instances of, forgetting something, forgetting our keys, going to a room and then forgot, what did we go there for?
Yeah. Or, where are my sunglasses?
Exactly. That's my favorite
and they're
one.
on my head.
Exactly.
I've never done that.
Yeah. And so, these are experiences that happens to, I would say, all of us. So, and
good to know.
It's true.
Yeah, and yes, unfortunately, memory is one of those skills that do decline with aging. But if you find that this is happening to you more and more often, more frequently, and that if you find that if you have the need to make more reminder notes, to rely on your calendar more and more so than before, then this may be more worrisome. So it doesn't hurt to see a doctor. And also, we all have instances of meeting someone and forgetting their names, or forgetting names of casual acquaintances. So that's probably something that happens to all of us. But if you find that you are forgetting names of people who you see on a regular basis, or names of family and friends, then that could be a red flag. Okay. And another thing is your sense of direction. So there's a reason why we have GPS now. But if you find that you're getting lost in more familiar places, like places you've been to many times before, that places you should know how to get to, but all of a sudden, it's much harder for you to, navigate in a more familiar place, then so that may be another red flag. And so overall, I would say that, if it's something that's used to be easy for you to do, but now it's getting much harder, it's taking more time for you to do these things, it's taking you more effort to do these things, then, it may be more worrisome that you should probably see your doctor.
So then what's the next step?
So
I go to the doctor, and what happens?
Yeah, so if you go to a primary care physician, they may be able to provide you with a brief screening of your cognition. And then, so based on that, they may recommend you go see a neurologist for more extensive testing, or they may recommend that, that you go see someone like Dr. Brand and I, a neuropsychologist, for more extensive evaluation of your cognitive skills.
What are the tests that a neurologist might perform that you don't?
Right. So neurologists would perform just a brief screening of cognition, something called maybe the mini mental state exam, or another one that's sort of just like it, called the Montreal Cognitive. Montreal Cognitive Assessment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
It's
what,
MoCA. Yeah,
MoCA.
that's
Yeah.
commonly
The
referred
acronym.
to as MoCA.
Yes, MoCA.
and the mini mental, what's entailed in that?
So that's very basic things. It's a very basic screen. It's out of 30 points. They might ask you to spell a word backwards, or a very simple word, or to remember 3 words or something like that, counting backwards, things like that. Maybe naming some pictures. So to test language a little bit. But this is a brief screener, again, out of 30 points, where you just get a quick number, and it just tells the neurologist very grossly where cognitive functioning is at the moment. And then based on that score, and also based on the patient's symptoms, they might send the patient to us for a much longer, comprehensive evaluation. That's where we come in. So we do a wide range of cognitive tests to sort of do a very comprehensive assessment. Some of the things that Dr. Besha mentioned earlier, for example, attention we can look at, attention in different domains, visual, auditory attention. We can look at your ability to sustain attention over time, to divide attention, to pay attention to one thing and sort of tune out the other. We look at other things like processing speed, the ability to take in input and spit out an output just like a computer, and how quickly you can do that task.
I want to ask you something that kind of made me think about the attention issue. So when you're testing for attention, because some people, even undiagnosed, who purport to have attention deficit disorder, so let's say they're, in their 30s and they're still, and they have that issue at that point in their life. How do you distinguish somebody who may have had that for years versus someone who you're now testing for the first time, being part of their physiological makeup that they've had for years versus a new incident?
That is a great question, and that's why we've had so much training, because you can't just look at the scores and just give a diagnosis. The numbers don't tell everything. We really have to, that's why we do a very long interview beforehand and really get a very good sense of the chronology. Somebody with attentional problems since childhood, we ask about that. We try to get a sense of how bad that was and if they've been treated for it. And the best we can do is really just take that into account. When we look at their scores to see if there is attention, well, we have to think, well, maybe attention problems. So maybe that was long-standing. So that's really the best we can do, along with all the other things we know about the patient, and really just looking at the profile of the pattern of impairment that we see in the test scores. So that's a great question, and that just takes a lot of practice and training to do.
What is the training that, if I may ask, for a neuropsychologist?
Yeah, sure. So basically, so first of all, you have to become a clinical psychologist first. So after 4 years of undergraduate study, there's usually about 5 to 6 years of schooling to receive a doctorate degree. So that could be either a PhD degree or a more professional degree in psychology called Psych D. And once we have our doctorate degree, then a neuropsychologist typically then spends 2 or 3 years of training that varies in a clinical neuropsychology postdoctoral fellowship program. So it's kind of like equivalent of a medical doctor, doing 4 years residency. So that is the training. So it's really in those postdoctoral fellowship. This is where we learn to give all of the tests. So there are many tests out there that are designed to look at cognition. So we really learn to figure out which tests to give, and what tests are better than others, say to diagnose dementia or versus something else. If there's an issue with attention, so we know what test to give to get a better idea of what the person's attention and concentration is like. And then for memory testing, we have many different tests that looks at memory functioning. So yeah.
And what are the medications that are available at this point in time to treat Alzheimer's and or I guess the other permutations of the causes of dementia, Parkinson's, vascular, Lewy bodies?
Yeah, so yeah, that's a great question. So there are, well, we're not, first of all, I just want to, let you know that we're not medical doctors, so we're not really the ones to prescribe these medications.
Right.
So, but there are a number of medications that are available on the market, like more common ones are like Namenda, Aricept, and Exelon, so just to name a few. And so what those medications, what they do is that they don't reverse the process, but it helps to slow the progression of the disease for a limited time. So usually with dementia, we do expect a gradual decline over time, but these medications do help to maybe slow down that progression or hold the person stable for a longer period of time.
Any idea of what that period of time has been?
It's different for everybody, I think. Some people respond better than others. I've heard a number like maybe 18 months, turning back the clock 18 months or so. But again, we're not the treatment experts, so not exactly sure on that. But I've heard about a year or two.
Well, are the patients with whom you're working, are they mostly people who are taking medications, or they're not taking medications?
Yeah, we see a wide range of patients at different stages of the disease. Some people, of course, with not really any memory problems at all, no Alzheimer's at all, even though they have memory concerns. We have people in the stage of what's called mild cognitive impairment, which is sort of thought to be the sort of prodromal or precursor to Alzheimer's.
What does that look like? What is a patient in that stage?
Right, that's a great question. So mild cognitive impairment is basically defined as the presence of cognitive impairments on our testing, but having intact daily functioning, having functioning that's intact with the various things that I mentioned, the easy things like the driving and bill payment and things like that. They're doing well on their own. They're living independently. They just happen to have some cognitive difficulties on our tests, as well as cognitive concerns themselves.
Right. Yeah. So what's interesting about patients in that group is that sometimes when they come back again for testing, say in a year or two, and that some of them they may get worse, but some of them their scores look stable, and there are a subset of those patients who they actually revert back to normal. So,
Really?
yeah.
So to what do you attribute that return to normalcy in those situations?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, sometimes
I like that I asked. Thank you very much
yeah,
for that.
You do. Sometimes there's that element of that practice effect when you're taking the test more than once, okay? And then, but also, sometimes we all have our good days and our bad days and
It's
actually, it is true. Yeah,
I'm kidding.
yeah,
That,
of course,
never
yeah.
happens to me. They're all good days.
Right, yeah. And say, test anxiety, or if there's significant symptoms of depression at time one, but when they come back again, they're feeling much better, they don't feel as anxious, then, you can see some improvement in their scores, yeah. And also, even, studies have shown that anytime when you give a large battery of tests to someone who is neurologically normal, who's perfectly healthy, it's not unusual to find a low score, like 1 or 2 low scores in a very lengthy, extensive test. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I would think that there would have to be a tremendous amount of anxiety going into that whole process, because for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, and that's one of our jobs, is to sort of, deal with that anxiety and try to reduce that anxiety for our patients. We try to make our patients as comfortable as possible while they're taking these tests. We know it's an anxiety-provoking experience, and we just want their best effort, and so we really try to use kid gloves and be on their team and just get through the evaluation as best we can.
Now, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
They could just call our main number,
Which is?
Which is 301-562-7200, and just ask to set up a neuropsychological evaluation. I'm not sure about the insurance issues if you need a referral, but that might be the case. Usually our patients do have a referral from some doctor, whether it's their primary care physician or a neurologist.
Okay, great.
Right, yeah.
Well, I want to thank you both for being here today. It was very helpful
Thanks
and
so much for having
informative.
us. Yeah.
And if you have any ideas for a topic you'd like to see on Senior Solutions, please feel free to email me at seniorsolutionsTV@gmail.com. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.